G'day ladies and gents. On today's episode of Nature, It's Everywhere, we're going to be exploring the wild outback of Camp Yagu. Oh look at this plant. I'm gonna touch it.
Whoa, Mitch, do you know what you're doing? Also, why are you using that awful accent?
Oh, that was a close one, ladies and gents. Well, Max, I'm talking like this because we're going to be exploring the wild outback. And we're going on a hike as well. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure, but we should just go over one thing first.
Oh, of course.
When it comes to wild edible plants, the first step for safety is identification. You want to be 100% sure that your identification is correct. Remember, it's better to not eat an edible plant than to eat a poisonous one. The next thing you want to do is be aware of your surroundings. When you're foraging, make sure you look ahead, above you for dangerous trees, and in the underbrush for any poisonous or spiky plants. When foraging for wild plants, you may want to bring a bag to hold your wild edibles in, or a pair of scissors to cut any of the parts of the plant off that you would like. Lastly, the best way to learn about plant identification is from an expert. That way you can learn about the plant in person and they can eat it with you.
Crikey, can we eat something now?
Almost, we just have one more thing to talk about.
Come on.
Nope, this is real important. So when you're out foraging, you will most likely run into this plant, poison ivy. Poison ivy is, like the name says, poisonous, so be sure not to eat it or ingest it. Poison ivy can be identified by its 3 broad leaves growing on a vine. That vine is actually a stem, and the little root-like structures are called tendrils. These tendrils help the plant be easily identified, so if it's hairy, it's scary, don't touch it.
Is it time now, mate?
It is. So our first plant is raspberry. Raspberries can be identified by their 3 leaves, and the edges of the leaves are spiked. Similarly, the stem itself is spiked. You can see here we have a lot of berries that are growing right now, but those aren't quite ripe. You're going to want to wait until they're full in order to eat them. Raspberry is commonly misidentified when it's younger as poison ivy, and vice versa. When looking at the 2 plants, the one on the left is a raspberry bush, while the one growing in the tree on the right is poison ivy. Look at the difference between the 2 leaves.
Crikey, what's this?
So this here is wild grape. Wild grape can be identified by these large heart-shaped leaves, and since grape is a vine, you'll find it growing on top of other trees to take advantage of the sunlight that it provides. Wild grape will look different from the grapes you might see in the store. They're a lot smaller and their seeds are much larger, and those will come out during the fall. But another cool use of grape leaves is you can use them to wrap food that you're cooking in charcoals of a fire. You do a couple layers of that and it does a pretty good job.
Wild. Crikey, what are these?
So this is a wild blueberry bush.
Oh.
You can identify these. They'll be a tall, woody stemmed bush. And on them, you'll find these football-shaped leaves that alternate on the stem. To double check to make sure it's the right plant, if you turn the leaf over, you will find this light blue hue at the base of and bottom of the leaf. And that's how you can be sure it's a blueberry plant.
Wow.
But these taste just like the things in the store. If you want to eat them, you can. I suggest washing them first, though.
These will be great for later.
Now, when harvesting any kind of plant in the wild, you don't want to take too much from one plant. So there's more that way. Let's head on over and grab those as well.
Crikey. Crikey, what are these?
So these are wintergreen. Wintergreen is a low-lying plant that grows along kind of the shady part of the forest floor. You can find these alongside hiking trails pretty much anywhere in the Northeast. These are easy to identify because of their round-shaped leaves with these very slight spikes on the edges. Their stems are also a reddish hue, and the edible parts of them is the leaves, the berries, and the flowers. All of which will taste like wintergreen, which is a very minty taste. The flowers and the berries are very sugary, and so they're very tasty to eat.
Wild.
Hey, watch where you're going.
Oi!
Do you know what that is?
Well, what is it, mate?
It's wood sorrel. It's not just some grass.
Oh.
It looks very similar to clover, but it grows higher off the ground, and you can tell it's different from a clover because its leaves are heart-shaped. Now, this has another name. It's called lemon sorrel because it's a very lemony taste. Have a taste.
Just like lemonade.
Yeah, and you can make it into a lemonade or into a tea as well.
Crikey, that certainly was a wild hike. Thank you, Max, for teaching about these wild edibles.
Yeah, no problem. Just remember that if you're identifying plants, make sure 100% sure you know what it is before you eat it. 2, that you're aware of your surroundings, both below and above you when you're foraging in the woods. And the best way to learn is with an experienced guide.
Join us next week on Nature.
It's everywhere.